Hi everybody, it's Tahir here from Oderbach Permaculture Farm, and it's midsummer and our permaculture system is entering the abundance fractal. We've just got food and produce emerging from every single system, whether it's vegetables, fruits, whether it's lucerne in the field, whether it's calves being born, whether it's agroforestry, nut systems. It's a non-stop flow of really healthy, abundant, and ethical food. Ethical because the production of the food causes absolutely no harm and loss to the environment it grows in or to the people who are eating it. So this particular module, we are going to look into the ethics of permaculture, because permaculture is a ethically based system of design, and it results in ethically based human life support systems. And having a really good understanding of the ethics of permaculture sets the foundation to understanding the permaculture concept properly. Okay, so let's get into it. Hi everybody. Having had a good delve into the permaculture context, we're going to start moving now into defining what permaculture is. So now we have a foundation to work from, then we have a much easier way of looking into the complexity of the permaculture concept, because it's a very profound concept, and there's a lot of constituent parts that make it up. So I think the most important aspect of permaculture that really, and one of the main aspects that sets it apart from other systems of land use and governance and design, is that it's ethically based. That sitting at the heart of permaculture is a set of ethics. And you can see here in this image here, we see the entirety of the permaculture system, and at the heart are the ethics, which then inform layers of principles. Okay, and these principles embody the ethics, and then from the perspective of principles we move out into strategies and techniques. So you have this layered, nested hierarchy of concepts that form the basis of permaculture. And every layer outside the inner ones is an iteration of the inner core, and the inner core concept, which in permaculture's case is ethics. So everything moving out from the center has an ethical foundation, and this makes permaculture really unique as a system. So the ethical basis of permaculture ensures, by design, because permaculture is a design system, a society that is ethical by nature, because of the fact that the design system itself establishes an ethical pattern into society. And as we know, ethics are basically systems that are fair and balanced, meaning that all interests within the context are considered. We don't have an exclusionary reality where majority overrides minority or minority overrides majority, for instance. And this kind of considering all the balance of interests that are present in society allows for a stable natural order to function at the structural heart of our reality, of our society. It's an all-inclusive approach. So when studying the ethical origins of society, and we look at cultures around the world, that have an ethical foundation, particularly our first culture, so very deeply imbued in ethics and mutual respect and deep, profound respect for nature, there's a common theme or a thread that runs through all of them. And this can be expressed as natural law, which we had a look at in the permaculture context presentation, or the law of the land. And in these days, it's formed the foundation of our ancient legal systems, our system of law, and it's known as the common law. Common because it is common to all people. It's based in common sense, all right? And the common laws ingrained or set on the foundation of 4 primary ethics, or touchstones. And from these 4 primary ethics emerge all iterations of law. And some people like to call it God's law, and you see this encapsulated in many of the religious texts around the world, but they all distill down to these basic 4 premises. Do no harm, cause no loss, do not impinge on the peace and freedom of other people, and honor agreements made in full transparency and through voluntary consent. So everything, whether it's contract law or the common law, the criminal law, they all rest on these premises. And the fundamental aspect of it is that the universe works on consent. And for there to be consent in any endeavor or context, there has to be full transparency, so everyone is aware of what's happening and they can ethically grant their consent. So we have a really ancient system that sits at the heart of all law, and it's very simple actually, and this results in a stability and a peace in society if it is enforced or honored. But unfortunately, in today's corporate reality, we see that ethics have taken a back seat. They no longer form the heart and soul of our legal system, because we have a profit motive in our society, and a power motive in our society. And slowly but surely, over time, our legal systems have been co-opted by technically illegal legislation writing, where we've seen that ethics deliberately removed from our laws, and we see natural law removed as a foundation to our civil laws. And what we have found ourselves in now is a legal context that is based in the commercial law. And so that legal has replaced ethical as the basis of all action in society. And we can see now with systems such as apartheid that just because something's legislated, just because a politician writes it down and gazettes it, doesn't make it ethical. There's a fundamental difference between ethical and legal. So this particular dichotomy has become very evident, where our main motives in society these days are centralization of power and profit, and you see all manner of political jabberwocky in the mainstream media obscuring the fact that what our society is doing may be legal in some instances, but not ethical. And so if we are going to develop a truly regenerative society, our social contracts between ourselves have to stand in integrity, all right? And without that integrity, there's no guiding light to what we do. And we see in the pursuit of power and profit and control, we have visited unimaginable atrocities upon the earth and humanity, and it's getting worse. It's just unacceptable. And it's all because we have these legislators who've used the sham of democracy to legitimize their position, to manufacture consent. They don't have real consent, they've manufactured it. They've got themselves voted into power by virtue of a narrative, and then they get there, the narrative is dropped, and they then go forward in fulfilling the agendas of the power elite, to the expense of us and to the expense of the natural world. And this is backed up by history. They can just sit there in the corridors of power and pen these laws off because they are the representatives of the people. And these laws support a system in society that is fundamentally unethical and is destroying the planet and our culture at an unprecedented rate. And we have to put a stop to this. And what we see now is this corporatization of all aspects of our lives. And nature and people have become a commodity, defined as a commodity to be owned and controlled and traded. Okay? We are seen as dead entities in the eyes of the system. And ourselves and the natural resources and the scale and order of the natural world and all beings within it are seen purely in terms of monetary rather than intrinsic life value. Okay? And permaculture actively turns this around by design. Okay? And this is because permaculture embeds itself in 3 primary ethics. And we're going to have a look at each ethic in turn. And because of this, permaculture is defined by the honoring and the expression of these 3 primary ethics, which ensure long-term regenerative foundation into society. It ensures a balance of interests in our society that is fair and allows for us to evolve life support systems that are not extractive and exploitative. So at the heart of permaculture, we've seen sit the ethics, all right? And these ethics define our approach to design, and they also define how we understand our systems. We can use them to evaluate whether we are actually being effective in design and achieving self-regulation and not causing harm and loss. And I'm sure all of you who are on this course have encountered these ethics through the research that you've been doing, and they're very simple, basic ethics, much like the 4 ethics of the common law. From these 3 ethics, all ethical behavior and approaches are emergent from them, are iterations of these ethics. And they are care of the earth, care of the people, and reinvest surplus into the first 2 ethics. And this is an interesting aspect, this reinvesting of surplus. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail, because I personally think this is misunderstood in the permaculture community because it's not properly qualified. And so we will do that. All right. So we've got an environmental, a social, and an economic aspect to the ethics. Right, and that brings us back into this foundation we've been working from the beginning, the awareness of the holistic nature of reality, that reality has a foundation in the ecological, environmental, and a culture that sits in that, which relates to that environmental foundation to generate its economic order. So we're dealing with the holarchy here. So care of the earth is always the primary ethic, because earth is our home and it's the resource base from which we exist, and it's an extension of our own bodies, minds, souls. And it's our primary directive to ensure all activities associated with ourselves are regenerative on natural systems. Okay, so whatever we do, it has to have a regenerative effect. And inherent in this ethic is a life ethic that states that all living things have an intrinsic worth, and they should be valued for what they are, not by virtue of their use to us only as a commodity. And I would take it further. I'd say all things have an intrinsic value, okay, and they have a worth by virtue of what they are and need to be respected as such and used as such. And that includes the mineral kingdom, all right? It's not just there for exploitation. There is an intrinsic value of the mineral kingdom to the earth, as we've discussed previously. And so this earth care ethic actually puts us into a new definition of our role on earth as earth stewards or custodians. And it's very much based on this realization that we only ever have temporary control over a space or over resources or things, because we're not here forever. Things come into our custodianship and we look after them and we pass them on, hopefully in a much better condition than we received them. Okay? And this is our responsibility to future generations. It's our primary responsibility that we leave the world in a better place. And we are really, if we look at the trophic pyramid, for example, we're the highest expression of the planetary order. And there's a reason for that, because the earth has embodied itself in us so that we can cultivate and steward the earth into a far more abundant and harmonic world with a lot more potential than if we didn't act in a regenerative way. But instead we're doing the very opposite. So this care of the earth ethic means we need to bring our awareness down to every little thing that we do. We have to be present and conscious and assess all actions. And assess them in light of the impact they are having on our surrounds, okay, on our environment. And we have to ask ourselves constantly, is this regenerative? And this concerns all aspects of our behavior in the world towards the earth. The way we consume. Are we buying products that are manufactured and generated through harming the earth, or are we supporting businesses that are generating products that we consume that are regenerative? And when we reach the answer, we have to act in integrity, and we have to, if possible, divest from that. Okay, and when we look at the systems we design and put into place, the outputs of our systems must not only do no harm, because that's what I would term sustainability. They should, as far as possible, have a regenerative effect, improve that for ecosystem processes. And we need to look at our waste systems and what impact are those waste systems having. Is the waste from our system regenerating the mineral cycle, for example? Is it improving the effectiveness of the water cycle on the site? Are our waste systems contributing to the healthy growth of vegetation towards more sunlight harvesting? They're not complex questions, and they have a very profound effect on the way we conduct ourselves and the way we see ourselves. And this is where permaculture is radically transformative, because it forces us to divest from the very culture that's destroying us and our planet. Okay? And we need to assess that. We need to be conscious. It brings us into awareness of everything we're doing, what we're buying, what we're selling, our impact as humans on this earth. It's a system of accounting at the end of the day. And so when we apply this ethic into society, most of our current activities as humans become illegal in terms of natural law. They're causing harm and loss. And so, conversely, we need to put our energy and efforts into activities that have the highest benefit to the earth. We need to take our time and resources and energy and focalize them into earth care. And that's a very simple directive, but it's hard to apply, because there's a lot of baggage we have in our world, and we need to let it go. And it's that's the first step, is divesting and shedding. And the next step is to then don a new skin, a new set of clothes, so that we can go about creating the world we want. And this is where ethics are very important in framing that. And how do we do this? We do this by virtue of what we have responsibility for. You know, our properties, our immediate environment that is under our custodianship. Okay, and we are enabled through permaculture design to change this, what I would term the site. Okay, it's a new form of terminology we need to get used to. It's not our property or the farm or the business. It's the site that we are acting on, okay, and living from. And we in an exchange dynamic with it, and we can call it our resource base that supports what we do in life. Okay, and because the permaculture design system allows us to transform that into the regenerative, it means that the more people that are doing that enables a rapid transition out of the old way into the new. And it is a very much a grassroots process where each land custodian contributes to the whole by enabling a regenerative process within the realms that they are responsible for. And some are responsible for more than others. And they've proven that capacity to take responsibility, and so they've been given more. So the larger your system, the greater the responsibility. And you need to bear this in mind if you're wanting to buy a farm, is that you're taking on a lot. You can't just take a piece of land and focalize all your energy in an area and say, well, this is where I'm going to be living, and this is where I'm going to be producing food, and this is where I'm going to apply regenerative land use methods and restore, when the large majority of the land is actually degenerating from the collapse of the ecosystem processes. We have to restore it all, because that is our responsibility on an ethical level. And if we do that properly, we will form a foundation that will then enable us to apply the next level of ethics, care of the people. And here, all intent, action, and system development needs to have a regenerative effect on ourselves and those around us. Okay? It's our primary directive to ensure that nothing we do causes harm and loss to ourselves and others. And so we've got two things here: us personally and other people around us. And so this ethic sits very firmly in personal responsibility. And Bill Mollison himself says it: the only ethical decision is to take responsibility for our own existence and that of our children. And that's all we can take responsibility for. So in order to have a positive impact on the world, we need to be self-reliant, healthy and proactive as individuals. We need to work on ourselves, okay? And we take care of ourselves first, because we cannot be of any help to other people and assist in the regeneration of our culture around us if we are degenerative. But we're not a good example. No one's going to be interested in what we have to say, you know? And so the first step is personal responsibility and self-care. And this means we get ourselves to where we wish to see the world. Okay, and that will rub off on those around us who are open to it. We are walking in this life forward with the like-minded people who are ready for change, who are supporting. We're not running around trying to drag the reluctant, kicking and screaming into something they're not ready for. Our objective is to build a culture and a regenerative society with those who are ready to co-create. Okay, and this is an important thing to remember. So don't waste your time and energy trying to convert people. It's not what we're here for. We are here to set an example and to form affiliation and association with those who willingly come forward to work together with us. And this is change by example, and it starts at home on your doorstep. All right, and this is the power of permaculture. It's a very direct, action-orientated approach. And you're working with what you have. You're not sitting around waiting for the ideal, because if that's what you're going to do, you're never going to get anywhere, because that's never going to happen. All right? And so from the basis of personal care and personal responsibility, we need to understand that self-care isn't selfish. It is the foundation of people care. All right, and we need to be conscious about that. We need to respect the temple of our body and our mind and our soul, because it is our obligation ethically to be at the best we can possibly be. And we need to be in this day and age. Okay, and we need to ensure at least the following, the very basically, that we eat nutrient-dense food, because our body is made from the food we eat. We need to drink living water, not dead, chemically saturated toxins. We need to be financially self-reliant via earth and people care livelihoods. We can't be financially self-reliant if the work we do is destroying the world we're trying to heal. Okay. And we ingest only and put onto our bodies only healthy and natural substances that support earth care and people care activities. Why would we toxify ourselves by smearing toxic sun cream all over us, for example, or spraying our armpits with toxic deodorant, killing off our microlife, supporting the big petrochemical industry? It's a contradiction. Permaculture is a whole system approach. It's not just about having a garden and then behaving like a consumer in the mainstream at the same time. All right, and so if we harm ourselves, we harm others by creating dependency situations, because ultimately we're going to degenerate. And so others are going to have to take responsibility for us. And they're going to have to put their effort and energy to ensure that we don't degenerate beyond our capacity to survive. And so permaculture is focused on overcoming dependency via self-reliance and personal responsibility. It builds very empowered and strong people, and this is what the world needs. And it's a very demanding ethical regime. It means we have to divest from harmful products, activities, and systems, and that's hard. It's hard letting go of something if you spend all your life attached to it. But we have to. We've got to stop consuming the mainstream media, because that brainwashes us into activities and lifestyle patterns that are not regenerative. We've got to be discerning when we purchase stuff. We've got to read labels, and we've got to look at where it comes from and who is producing it. You know, are we going to buy stuff that supports and grows Monsanto, for example? And this effect of divestment and reinvestment into regenerative products and activities and systems results in not only personal improvement and evolution, okay, but it also results in the growth and evolution of businesses and systems around us that are earth care, people care orientated. And the whole idea of permaculture design is to design systems that support us in our evolution as human beings. Permaculture is all about evolving, all right, evolving consciousness, evolving our resource base so that it can support a high quality of life, which is always about improving oneself. If you look at life in general, it's a great endeavor to self-improve. And so when we do take this ethic into consciously engaging with other people, all right, and we are in an empowered position personally, and we're healthy and strong, and we represent regenerative living in all ways, the impact is widespread, okay? It's because this is where personal influence can change a cultural context. You rub off, you inspire, all right? And all changes come from one person at some stage. Somebody birthed it into the world and lived it by example, and it caught on because good ideas do. And so we act with integrity towards each other, and we see them as different ecosystem aspects of ourselves. We need to treat people in that way. And that immediately creates a completely different dynamic in our social relations. We're no longer exploiting people. And so from a design perspective, this ethic ensures that your permaculture expression is your permaculture system is an expression of people care, all right? It is a nurturing and supportive platform for human sustenance and growth. And so we do not, by our actions and systems, exploit people, but rather empower them. Okay, and so that's not only in the realm of system design, it's also how we consume and what businesses we support. We invest and we support businesses that we want to see growing. And sometimes it means that you have to put a bit more effort in and pay a little bit more, you know. And I see it in funny ways, you know, like this whole relationship thing between people, you know, like, my friend's got this rock concert going. It's, you know, he's working there at the door. Let's see if we can get a free ticket. You know, or so-and-so makes amazing pies at her pie shop. Let's go and get some free pies. That's a very degenerative perspective to have. Our perspective is, if friends own business and they're producing resources and services, we need to support them by paying them for what they do, not asking them for freebies, for example. So turn around and thinking. And so once you have a properly designed, effective permaculture system, all interactions with that system by yourself and by other people who are engaging with it, whether they are customers, people living in it, or students, or volunteers, interns, all interactions with that system by virtue of the ethical foundation of permaculture systems, okay, will have an enlivening effect, a life positive effect on all people engaging with it. And this will ripple out from the local up to the global, from the bottom up. And we've seen how many of the powerful, effective permaculture practitioners around the world, Jeff Lawton, for example, have created this massive global movement, training hundreds of thousands of people and supporting life positive events and systems everywhere. Okay, and it started with him becoming a permaculture practitioner in his own life and getting his first system together. And this is why it's a truly grassroots movement built on consent, because it's about the people doing what they want to do with their reality, and it catches on. Okay. And so a well-designed and implemented permaculture system will provide vital abundance in product streams, okay, and in activities and in experience to ensure high-quality lives of the residents. And at the same time provide a range of hard-to-find, healthy, empowering resources and services that support earth care and people care. And so permaculture systems in the community are fantastic. It provides people with healthy organic food. It provides people with inspiration and education. It provides people with all sorts of resources that they would not be able to access through the corporate franchise reality, the low-grade, life-negative systems of commerce that make up the mainstream system. And so once you have your permaculture system in place, and it's manifest through the principles of earth care, people care, you will reach self-regulation eventually. By that I mean you will start generating a surplus, all right? And that surplus is not only just product-based, that resource-based. It's surplus time, it's surplus energy, it's surplus ideas, it's surplus skills, knowledge. We take that and we share it, okay? But we share it with discernment. We don't just share it out there in the world. That is, I think, the biggest problem with this understanding that permaculture community have of this ethic. It's not about just simple sharing of surplus, okay? This sharing of surplus is very much about the economic, all right? And the economic has many different dimensions to it. But it's our economic transaction with the world, our economic transactions through consciousness, through products. It's about discernment and sharing. It's about putting our surplus into earth care and people care systems and activities and events. It's about supporting the development of this, all right? It's about putting our surplus into the development of more permaculture, more earth care, more people care, all right? And by doing this, we grow the permaculture reality We invest in it, just like billionaires invest in their own economic systems and well-beings. We see that with Bill Gates, classic example. Took all his wealth from Microsoft, created a foundation, and put billions into industries that he owns. The vaccine industry, for example. And he stands to make a fortune at the moment. And so we need to do the same. We need to invest our surplus back into what we want to see. More permaculture. Okay? And we do not put our surplus into anything that is unethical by nature. Okay? So our business goal is to reproduce permaculture, to grow healthy environments and people, and ideally to support other permaculture and regenerative systems and people. That's what we want to do. And I think now more than ever in this big lockdown age, we see a huge corporate takeover of society. We need to counteract that by investing in the local, in the regenerative. It's the only way we're going to turn this around. We've got to divest from this nasty, nasty malevolent force we see permeating our world at the moment. And so if we create closed loop systems for our surplus, we'll find that growing the regenerative culture we are facilitating, okay, this culture will not be bleeding finance out into the franchise. It will be keeping it in the local loop, going round and round and round and doing the work it needs to do in the local. Not shipping out in a linear pattern to the pockets of the George Soroses and George Bezoses and Mark Zuckerbergs and all these big fat cat exploitative capitalists out there who are just trying to suck us dry. Right? It means our systems and our local economies do not bleed finance and resources and people, because that's what's happening to our mainstream economy. And this is how we turn it around. The ethic establishes a very distributed society rather than a centralized one. And it is able to function within a balance of local and broader interests coming from the local and reaching into the global, not the other way around. All right. And so we see this pattern, a shift from a centralized network pattern where all resources and energy are going to the spider at the web. We start to create new nodes. We start to distribute it in a decentralized network. And we further break it down into the distributed ecosystemic network of the permaculture reality, of the regenerative society. It has an ecosystemic pattern which we looked at in the permaculture context. All right. And we do this in many ways. We ensure that we don't send raw materials off the site and into some centralized co-op structure and export it overseas, for example. We keep everything within the region as a priority. Site first, then immediate local, and then on in a ripple effect from local outwards. And we only put processed high value resources out there that have low mass and high value and are surplus to site and local needs. Okay, and they have a very low footprint, are easy to transport, and don't take much energy doing that. Okay. And this anchors the entire planetary reality in the distributed local context. And the global extent of this culture is stable because it's built on a foundation of regenerative parts that make it up. And thus, the whole becomes regenerative. And so the end result of the application of the three ethics is the promotion of life. Life positive. Okay. And so permaculture, by virtue of its ecosystemic and ethical foundation, is life-centered and life-affirming. And if a system violates any of the ethics, then it's clearly not permaculture. Very easy. This is the primary way we determine whether we are doing permaculture or not, or other people are doing it. And next, what we will do is we'll look at the permaculture concept itself, define it, and then move into the principles which emerge out of the ethics. And we'll have a much greater understanding of what permaculture is.